I think the conversation needs to start happening sooner. And I think, the importance behind this conversation the conversation is, what are the skilled trades and what do they look like and what are the employment opportunities? We've got to destigmatize them.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. I'm Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Eric Blimkie, a shop teacher. Where, Eric?
Peterborough, Ontario, Canada.
And what's the name of the school district where you work?
I work for the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board.
And how many kids and what ages are they in your classes?
Right now I've got 22 grade 10s. That's probably age, I think they're like 13, 14, 15, depending. Some of them are just getting their driving licenses for the first time. Yeah.
And any older students or just 10th graders?
It's very interesting. Because of this whole COVID thing, what we do as teachers in our schools has changed a lot. So one week I'm with that group of students I mentioned, and the other week I bounce around supervising other classes. And so I've got some older, like grade 11s in those other weeks in our hand tools room. And they would, they're getting like 17, maybe some of them, probably 16, 17.
And are you able to have in-person classes at this time, or are you trying to work around the COVID?
We do have in-person classes. I'm really lucky. I'm really happy to be back in the building. There's, safety protocols out the wazoo, as I'm sure you can imagine, lots of hand sanitizer. I got a mask on all day. I even, got to wear the face shield when I'm in the building close to students.
Is that frightening for you?
No. It was at first. And then seeing how well students were responding to the protocols and wearing their masks, it had become more comfortable. It's interesting that we've just had our first case in the school, known case of COVID in the school. And so now things have, tightened up a little bit. Like I see a lot more of my colleagues wearing the face shields. It was kind of, it was a choice, I guess, before. When you got within 6 feet of a student, you had to wear it, but other times you could choose to wear it. So one of my direct colleagues is always wearing his face shield, and others, I'm seeing more of them start to wear their face shields and their masks now.
Interesting. So can you please tell me, as I understand it, you were a carpenter before you became a teacher. Can you tell me first how you became a carpenter and then how you became a teacher?
Yeah, absolutely, Patrick. I think, it kind of starts for me, this whole story starts in my grade 10 year. That was the first time that I got to take what we call construction technology. And that's where you're in the wood shop, studying woodworking and construction. And I had a really great mentor, a guy named Bill Thompson, who is still a friend, and we still share shop space together on occasion. And so that was the kind of the caveat to get me going down the skilled trades road. Started in high school shop class. And it was kind of towards the end of high school, you got to start choosing, are you going to go to university, college? You're going to start your apprenticeship. And I think, something we'll get into, I know, as the podcast goes on, is a lot of people in my school were pushed to go to university or college. So I chose to go to college and start studying a construction engineering technician, which, kind of carpentry based. And so the first year was all hands-on, and it was great. I really enjoyed that. And there I got some really great mentors who said, Eric, if you want to start working in the trades, you should really do an apprenticeship. And I was humming and hawing between cabinet making and carpentry. And it seemed like the cabinet makers were like kind of the least paid in Ontario. And so I was a little more interested in starting with carpentry. And it seemed like the employability was a little bit greater. So I fulfilled my apprenticeship, mostly residential renovations. And I just kept getting, finer and finer, kind of coming back to that cabinet making. I spent a couple years, maybe 3 years as a trim carpenter exclusively. And just before getting into teaching, I was employed in a cabinet shop. And that was that was awesome. To be in the shop was really, really great.
You liked that better than being in the field as a carpenter?
Yeah, I like them both, but I really enjoy setting the tools up and having a lot more control, working with the machines, kind of having a bench. I really enjoyed that, having, all my tools behind me, similar to what you see behind me in my background. I really, that's my home, being in a wood shop makes me feel really comfortable.
I would say you fall in the middle of tidiness with regard to woodworkers in what I've observed.
Right about the middle, eh?
Yeah, I'd say right about the middle. Yeah.
Excellent. That's good. It's like organized
So,
chaos a little bit.
so what did you make in your high school class that, like, what did it teach you?
I think we started with like a pedestal table, using the lathe, and I think the big takeaway from my grade 10 year was like laminating a top together, or orienting the grain opposite direction in every other piece. That was a huge takeaway for me, which I still use every day. And the big takeaway, the reason I put the guitar in the back here, in that year, I asked Bill Thompson, the shop teacher, I said, I really want to build a guitar. And he barely knew me at that point in the year and said, it's a pretty hard project. And maybe we'll save that for a senior year. But I was so determined, Patrick. And I kept doing all the research on my own, and finally came to him about a month later and said, listen, I've done all the research. I know everything I need to buy, but I don't have the woodworking knowledge. I would love it if you could help me with the woodworking knowledge. And at that point, he knew me a bit better. And so that's where I made my first guitar. Now, it's not the one you see back there. That's just a repair project for a friend. But so the whole time as I was practicing carpentry and now as a teacher, in one world, I still get to practice fine woodworking through building guitars and repairing them and setting them up for other people.
Did you finish the guitar, and do you still have it?
Yeah, it's not here. Sorry, I can't show you, but yeah, it's at mom and dad's, and it's pretty playable. It's really heavy though. It was a good lesson. I used it's like regular white ash, which was dense and heavy, and the industry uses swamp ash, right, which is a little bit more open and lighter.
Awesome. Do you play guitar?
Yeah. Bass mostly.
Uh-huh. So you explained it to me. You were a carpenter for a few years, and then how did you become? You went to work in this cabinet shop, and then how long did you do that? And then was that the next step to being a teacher?
I was a carpenter for about, my apprenticeship was about, I think I did about 4 or 5 years, and then I got my red seal. Up in Canada, we have our red seals, which is kind of a national designation. And through that process, I met another college instructor, a guy named Jim Leslie. There was a point in my career, a couple years after I'd met him and I'd left the apprenticeship program and I was a licensed carpenter, when he asked me through an email that I got, 10 days late with no opportunity to act on, he said, we've got an opportunity to teach. We think you'd be great for it. It's like high school students that didn't have a shop in their building. And so he kind of, him asking me, someone I respected very much as an instructor of myself, him asking me about instructing started me kind of thinking about that. And unfortunately, I missed the calling then. And I kept, as you said, I kept working and got into the trades, the cabinet making trade. And then there was this kind of pivotal shift in my life where I moved from one city. All of my apprenticeship was in London, Ontario. And I moved with a former partner to Kingston, Ontario. In Kingston, Ontario, we moved for my former partner to do teachers college, the study of teaching. And through hanging out with all her new friends, they would ask me, Eric, what are you doing on that guitar? And I would, explain what I was doing, and, with a smile and the kind of the passion I hope you're seeing right now. And oh, wow, Eric, that's a really good description. Have you ever thought of teaching? And so I started volunteering in a high school that had a guitar building focus program. And this was the eye opener for me. This fellow, another great mentor, a guy named Gary Pattenden, ran this program where for the full day, and this is kind of unheard of, for the full day, the students were in the wood shop, high school students of probably, starting at about 15 all the way up to 18 years old. We're in this shop earning 3 credits, building guitars all day long. And that was when the light went on. Like, people have already, been asking me if I want to teach. And now there's this opportunity to teach what I absolutely love. I can see it in front of me. I volunteer in it. And that was when I started looking into what it takes to be a teacher. And with my experience as a carpenter, I realized I was more than qualified to apply to the what's called technological education, and to transition to becoming a shop teacher.
Do most districts have shop programs like yours? Can you tell me about Canada's higher education or educational system?
Absolutely. I can speak from my limited experience in Ontario. This is my 4th year teaching in the secondary school system. And it is, there's a big part of our education that is technological education. Now, it's not as in the forefront as I would personally like it to be, but it does exist. And depending on the buildings, and how they were built. Like a lot of our schools in our school board were kind of 60s, 70s construction, and there was a bit more of a motivation to have shops in the school. And so those older buildings, like the majority of our buildings, have construction shops really common, transportation shop, auto mechanic, manufacturing is also very common. I know metalworking. Um, and so there is this whole curriculum to go with that. Now, technological education, all of those things, and it's even broader, Patrick. Like there's farming and forestry, and cooking is something else I teach. I have to kind of diversify my skill set in the school
Sure.
system up here. And so, as a home cook, something else I've taken on is teaching cooking, and all of those curriculums are they're not mandatory. So it's only by choice that a student would wind up there, and it's kind of based only on the school that they go to and the teachers they meet. And I was really lucky to meet that one teacher that kind of opened my eyes to construction in grade 10.
Did you have any prior exposure to working with your hands as a child before this educator showed you the light?
A little bit, yeah. I think of my grandfather, and I even think of my father took photos of my great grandfather in his wood shop. And so there's this great black and white photo that's still up at mom and dad's house of my great grandfather in his wood shop with, like, the giant the big axe for squaring up. I forget what that's called right
A
now.
broad axe?
Broad axe, exactly, is on and there's like the thing for the kind of tongs to grab a log or hanging up on the ceiling. And he was that great grandfather, Patrick Blimkie, was an epic wood carver. So he would carve like real Canadiana kind of log drive scenes. So
You'll
you like
have to tell me what that is, man.
okay, yeah, absolutely, sure, no problem, Patrick. Um, so and with America and in Canada, there, as the white settlers came, there was a lot of the log industry took off, and in Canada it was there just a plenty of log driving. So some of the carvings I think of are like a 8-horse sleigh team pulling a load of logs, and
And
it's
were
all
these
hand
made by
carved.
loggers, like in their downtime? Is it just the theme that's the log drive?
The carvings.
Yeah.
I think I don't believe that he was a logger. It brings up more questions that I should talk with my family about. He just did this in his spare time.
Mm.
So it was like replica though, like perfect. Everything was to a T, to scale as close as he could. It was very impressive, fine woodworking skills. Um, yeah,
Did you
like,
know
oh,
him?
no, I
Uh,
got to see him. I have a memory,
yeah.
of like a family party and seeing him and sitting in his chair and just kind of, I think I was young, like just barely have the memory of that.
I'm sure that having the objects around the house made an impression, though, that to learn that someone in your family made these cool things.
Absolutely. And even, going on that lineage as well, my grandfather was always building or splitting wood or had a little wood shop. And so then when we'd go visit, that pungent smell of pine that is now still a very strong memory for me. Anytime I come into the wood shop in the morning and I can smell, or in the school, you can smell students cutting pine. That's like a really,
A
vivid kind of
trigger. Yeah.
trigger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trigger for my passion.
So do you have students in your school that you think will become carpenters, or is there like a track program for kids who want to pursue it, as a career?
There is, and I think this is one of the aspects that the school system in general and particularly I hate to call out my employer like this, but I think they could improve as well.
Mm.
There's an amazing track where a student as early as 16 can enroll in what's called the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program. So if they know by 16 that they want to get into a trade, there's an opportunity for them to start working on their apprenticeship, going to trade school and putting their hours in as early as 16, which is like a 2-year advantage on most other students who would graduate at say 18. Um, I wish I could, say more about my particular school. We only have a hand tools room, so we're still doing woodworking and kind of basic construction knowledge, but it's unclear to me how many of them are truly interested in carpentry at this point. I would say usually those conversations happen at grade 12, and I think one of the great improvements we could do is start having those conversations younger, kind of around that whole time when we start talking about careers and paths through and after high school.
Do you think that kids of that age, in their teens, can really know that they want a career with their hands? Or, is it even the right time for them to make that decision? As you pointed out, you and I both got pressure from our families to go to
Yeah.
college.
Mhm.
So,
That you bring up an excellent point, and that's the kind of caveat or the devil's advocate to, my pressure to start talking about it sooner. We also don't want to pressure students to,
do things they don't want to do. And I don't think anyone's
exactly.
talking about that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, it's tough. I think a lot of teenagers, the best thing I did is I had like a regular job in high school. I worked at just like a retail store unloading trucks and loading shelves and things like that. And I think it's those experiences that truly help us understand what we want to do. And I was really lucky to get those great shop teachers throughout high school that, I could ask them questions about, oh, what did you do for work? And what does it mean to be an architectural mill worker? And they would, help me understand those roles. Yeah.
Do you think that there are special challenges to hand skills teachers in this day and age when we have so many devices and so many distractions? Like, I had to figure out things to do to keep myself amused as a young person, and one of the things I had access to was a basement full of my dad's tools.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
But would I have wanted to do that if I had an iPad? And it's hard to know that. Do you think it is harder for kids to learn about things than I did, for example?
Absolutely. I think too, we keep bringing up really great points, you and I, Patrick, about role models, about good role models and people with interesting habits. I think it is getting a little bit harder. I see it's very interesting, devices and iPads and cell phones. As a teacher, I run this balance between, allowing them to use it as a tool, but more often than not, I witness it being abused as a social media addiction. And it's such a tough balance to, kind of help students engage in their learning and find that. I think that one of the bigger challenges that I find is intrinsic motivation, like wanting to learn something because you're interested in it and you're not getting paid to learn it, right? You're getting paid in knowledge, that in the intrinsic kind of that internal motivator. Yeah. And I think depending too, I think about students at my school and I may be, there's very few staff members that have trade knowledge. And I'm not saying that as a dig. I'm just saying it's a touch of a limit, to have those role models that can role model the trades from a true experience standpoint.
Yeah, and I think your school is somewhat exceptional compared to the schools, at least all around here, that don't have any hand or, I forget what you guys call it in Canada. What is it? We used to call it VOTEC, but that's not what it is.
Technological education. Often
Technological
we just call
education.
it tech ed,
Yeah.
So Patrick, tell me a bit more about the schools in your region.
What do you want to know?
Well, you said that there's minimal hands-on kind of trade-based learning in high school.
That's very true. And I think that started happening in the 70s and early 80s when schools decided that they needed to have computer labs. The first thing to fall victim to the need for space was the wood and metal shop. And my high school, I graduated in 1989. And I think by 1993 or 94, they had closed the shops and moved all that equipment out of there. But I had an amazing education, but that went away quickly.
I have heard of the same trend happening in Canada around the same time, that there was this phase out for the same reasons, for bringing in computers. But now I think, in comparison, I think of the 4 schools that are directly close to me, and they all have hands-on shops of some kind.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
I think most people in the U.S. would say we're running very short of skilled tradespeople in home building and other industries, as you pointed out. Does Canada have similar problems? Do you hear complaints from the building industry that they don't have enough people to do the work?
Yeah, I saw it too as when I was working as a carpenter, masons, laborers were hard to come by. There was very few of them, and a lot of the fellows, yeah. And I think in my limited experience, I only witnessed male masons, and they were older fellas. Yeah, they were in their 50s for sure. And that's one particular area where I definitely saw a shortage. Just these old, strong guys that should have maybe some younger people helping them move their bricks and mix their mortar. Yeah, there's definitely the same trade shortage in Canada. I think of my mother-in-law who just wanted some hardwood done recently some hardwood flooring done in her house, and that it took a long time for that trade worker to respond and get there. And same thing, she had a roofing contractor, and it took a really long time to get them. And I don't know if my experience is limited in that regard. Is it that both of those people have bad communication skills, or is it they are so busy for work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What can we do better? How do we fix this problem? How do we make young people interested in things they have no experience with, and they have better things to play with than carrying bricks and block?
I think the conversation needs to start happening sooner, and I think the importance behind this conversation the conversation is, what are the skilled trades, and what do they look like, and what are the employment opportunities? We've got to destigmatize them. I think around the time when you spoke of the decrease in trade schools and removing shops, in the 90s, it was looked at as it was a dirty job, and it was a middle class job. And, I hate to say it, but I have witnessed colleagues that are scared that their son or daughter wants to be in the trades, like that it's for a dumb person. Are you sure that he wants to be in the trades? And it's just like heartbreaking to me that a parent would think of the trades in such a low light. That really bothers me. And so I think that the conversation needs to happen younger. And in grade 10, we start teaching careers. And I know they talk about the trades, and I don't know how much do they talk about the trades. And so I think that should be expanded.
How do we make people have a better perception of trade work to kind of push back against those parental influences that I also had? How do parents appreciate the important work that tradespeople do?
That's a really tough one. I think about, and this was one of the reasons that I left the trades, because a lot of the work I did was underappreciated. The people that especially when I was framing homes, no one really sees that afterwards, right? It's all covered up. I don't know if I have the answer. I know exposure is a good one, site visits. There is similar to a site visit down the street from me is a company that does a bunch of engineering and has a bunch of trade jobs in the kind of nuclear energy industry. And there's also a lot of naysayers in this neighborhood about that, as you can imagine. And I got the privilege to go view what they were doing and see how incredibly safe they were and how low the risks were. And it changed my perspective. I think with anything, be it trades or nuclear energy, getting that perspective, getting that experience is what changes it. So yeah, that's a great question. This is the question that I will work on for my whole career as a carpentry instructor, is helping, having nice conversations with people and trying to get more exposure for teenagers and their parents regarding the trades.
Well, I hope you have lots of success, brother.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Me too.
Interestingly, you contacted me first about describing the Sawhorses that were helpful to you when you were working on family projects, and you have a bad back from your career as a carpenter, right? Can you tell me what that's about, and how can we better take care of ourselves if you're going to have a career in the trades besides becoming a teacher or a fine home building editor?
I honestly, you really inspired me with that article. It got something moving in me, because I just about a year before started trying to find a good set of Sawhorses. And so it was really great to see a bunch of commercially available Sawhorses. And in your sidebar encouraged me to write in. It asked me to send in some pictures and a little story about my Sawhorses. And so in about a year ago, I suffered playing a game of squash. I suffered 2 herniated discs, which anyone
Oh
that,
man.
has had that, it knows how uncomfortable it can be. And through this process
Described
of
as only a Canadian could describe it. My
pretty
herniated discs
bad.
were uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah, they hurt a little bit. It brings me up. Yeah, you really helped me describe this topic through this recovery and getting a really awesome physiotherapist. I was able to learn that squash game was just a catalyst to kind of all the damage I had done as a carpenter. And I think about like, so the foundation's in, the first floor is on, carpenters are building walls. You know what the image is, right? It's like guys bent over, ladies bent over, people bent over. And that's something that I, right now in my state of recovery, I'm not supposed to bend over, not supposed to bend forward, because it'll just encourage the discs to pop out again. So I think about, all the things that I might do differently. And one of them was those sawhorses. I used to love and still love it, but can't do it, cutting 2 hands on the circular saw, right? Exposing the guard for like a big cheek cut, like a big long raft or like a double cheek cut, where you have to use your knee on a low set of sawhorses to hold down the 2x. So you can cut it you got to hold the guard off, but you're way bent over to do that. And so I built these sawhorses so that I could use clamps and make those cuts when I'm standing up, like more ergonomically.
And safer.
A lot. Yeah. 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 Use a clamp, not your knee, right?
Do you have hearing problems too?
Yeah, I've always been a musician. And so right when I went to college, my friends that were taking music more seriously than me were wearing hearing protection when we'd go out to watch people perform. So pretty soon, like especially when I started trimming full time and the miter saws going all day, I started wearing earplugs. And now, as someone that really values my hearing, I'm pretty cautious to protect my hearing. It's such a catch-22 though as a teacher, because I have to project my voice so people can hear me. And even this project that I built these sawhorses for that we've been talking about, I found the great benefit of having the hard hat with the hearing protection that snaps on and off. So I can, take one off to talk to someone and then put it right back on as we start cutting.
There are Bluetooth wireless earbuds now too. That's something similar, and the good ones you can apparently just take out of your ear and they turn off, which is kind of cool.
Excellent. So like hearing protection and a little bit of whatever
Yeah.
music you wish to listen
Yes.
to. Oh, that sounds great. Put the Pro Talk Fine Homebuilding podcast in there and work away.
So would you discourage or encourage your kids from taking up a career in the trades, knowing what you know?
Fully encourage, like with a strong bias that I've got to be cautious of. Yeah, and I think I would warn them to be careful of what they're lifting and how they're lifting it. I think too about my tool belt. I have one of those like beautiful Occidental heavy leather tool belts, and it's huge and it's heavy, and I can fill it with a bunch of junk. And I think that although it makes us faster, I think that's the whole kind of crutch with this. You're asking a lot of us this, what's wrong with your body?
Yeah.
It's such an industry that drives us so hard to perform. And when I worked as a trimmer, it was all performance based, right? How fast can you hang a door? How fast can you put that miter together? And that's
your merit, your pay was based on your efficiency, right? That's when you want to raise, they want to know how fast can you do these things, right?
And I think that's as far as the trades go, that could be something we could change, like our outlook, that would make it more appealing and make it healthier. That it should be more about, I think it, brings up a point of like, sometimes people identify only as a carpenter, and that's like their goal, and they're only a carpenter. But what about being a father, being a fiance, being a musician, all these other parts that if you get injured as a carpenter, all these other parts of your life are affected. So I think it's important to keep that perspective broad. And so, in motivating my own kids, when I have them one day to go into the trades, I would like really encourage them to like kind of work smarter, not harder.
Did you get encouragement from your parents, Eric, when you wanted to become a carpenter?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom and dad, Maureen and Brian, who probably can't wait to watch this, they fully supported me emotionally and financially, because it's pretty tough. Those first few years of your apprenticeship, you're not making amazing money.
No.
Yeah, so they fully supported it. It was actually a conversation with my father in the last year of high school. We started talking. I can remember like sitting in a Walmart parking lot in his car and just talking about what it would be like to be in the trades. And his brother was a general contractor who, for many years, built homes and would do a little bit of bartering. And so that was kind of the thing that got me really interested. Is like I can do something with my hands for something else that I value that's maybe not monetary value. Um, and so that was, yeah, my father was a big part of me going to that college program and like starting the career in the trades as a carpenter.
So this is arguably, well, this is definitely my favorite part of the show. Can you tell me
Mhm.
about your own house, and do you have any problems that you're ignoring, happily or unhappily at this point?
I'm so happy for this question. This is my favorite question. I've listened to a couple podcasts, like you suggested, Patrick, and so I did research. I walk around my neighborhood all the time, and I got to pull up my notes for this, because I want to give uh, a really good picture of what I live in. So I'm a renter. I live in an awesome neighborhood. It's so close to downtown, and it's probably the homes started being built in this neighborhood around kind of 1900.
Mm.
Um, and the really common theme is like stone foundation, 2.5 stories of red brick, and really great porches. That's a really good theme in this neighborhood, is really great porches. So
And
if I,
how would you describe the architectural style? Are they like four
oh yeah,
squares, or
um,
is it vary?
very a little bit Victorian. Like they remind me a lot of my apprenticeship was renovating a lot of Victorian homes in London, Ontario. So they're a little bit Victorian, like in the interior finishes. Um, Apparently, though, most of this style is, I guess, what's called Renaissance revival. Um, and through doing a little bit more digging, I discovered that there was a kind of a couple architects and a few builders. And so like the neighborhood, just to my left across the street was like, one builder would get a street and he would build all his homes of that style. And they're all very similar, but there's also like amazing examples of Tudor construction, and some other styles that I can't remember, but like right to a T, like French Revival, like right just a block away are these gorgeous homes. Arguably some of the nicer homes in the Peterborough area.
Hmm.
And there's some things I would fix. Well, I don't like when bats fly around and wake me up in the middle of the summer. So
Neither does Kylie.
that was a wide awakening. So
What do you do?
I will.
I would move. That's what I would do.
Yeah, yeah. Tackle the attic. Better insulation, less room for bats to get in. And that's the thing with a stone foundation and disrepair is it's like a sieve, right? Like I see,
Yeah.
like those little spots where the rodents are like trying to get in. Yeah, what do? You open a window and kind of encourage the bat to go out and close the doors and go back to sleep. Yeah, I think it'd be like, and I'd talk to my partner. We're getting ready to buy our home, getting all the paperwork in order and everything.
Oh, so
I
you
say,
have a house picked out, and
no, we're just securing financing, just right at the kind of the starting of all that fun stuff.
Have you guys been looking?
A little bit, and then we were kind of discouraged. And being a teacher is very interesting. We're both right at the start of our careers, and in the summertime, when the kids are off, we're basically unemployed, right? So when we tried to get a mortgage in the summer, they're like, "Hey, you got no income, buddy." So yeah, we've been looking a little bit, but we're looking for that mortgage. That's really what we got to start with.
Yeah, that is unfortunate that most of us need to get a loan to buy a house, right?
Yeah. And Patrick, tell us about your place. What is it like? What would you change? What would you fix?
Everything. I would
Yeah.
probably move. I love
Would
my
you?
barn and workshop that my
Yeah.
wife and I and some friends built, and it's nothing fancy, but it's perfect for what I'm doing now. And it would be very difficult to be living our lives right now without it. Our
Yeah.
house is very little. That is fine. My wife and I have always valued living in small homes. We met at a Habitat for Humanity site, so I think both of our aesthetic and quality of life choices align with small housing, and that's no big deal. But it's not very energy efficient. It's not all that good to look at. It's got vinyl siding on it. It's home.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you build like, I mean, I'm sure you would, if you could?
A new home?
Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe. Okay.
I like old homes too. I like new
Yeah,
homes. I have a moral. I think it's a moral choice to either build new or remodel, and my heart is
sure.
in remodeling and fixing something that's not working and making it work more so than building new homes. But if I had the money, building a nice new home on a piece of lot that I picked out, and that'd be great too.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Jeff, what
interesting,
is
eh?
it with this guy asking me questions? No one asked me questions on this
Oh, that's
show.
okay, Jeff.
Anything you want to tell or ask our listeners, Eric, before we part company?
I think, yeah, I do actually. Thanks for giving me the opportunity, Patrick. I think it's really important as someone that's in the trades. I'm no longer in the trades, but as people that are still in the trades, don't be afraid to seek out an apprentice. Go talk to a local high school, take a volunteer or a co-op student that's just going to, sweep the floor or, start with the basic stuff. And I think this apprenticeship mentality is really important. We have to be able to be patient with young learners and realize that they're not going to work as fast as we want. And I think it's really important that if we're going to improve the trades, that we have to encourage the trades and we have to help destigmatize the trades. We have to represent gender, race, sexuality all in a positive light. I know a bit of my experience in the trades was, one that had toxic masculinity, had homophobia, had racism. And it's important now in this day and age, I think, to, just to speak up against that with a simple, like, hey, that's not very nice. To start challenging those people that don't represent the trade well. And I know the old guard is retiring and there's less and less of them. And as the generations go on, it will improve. But yeah, I think we need to do anything we can to encourage young people and to change the environment to make it even more welcoming to younger, up and coming tradespeople.
That was fantastic, Eric. Thank you so much. Seriously, thank you for that. That's
You're very welcome.
well said and
My
important
pleasure.
words. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks to Eric Blimkie for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Eric, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.